Some people don't destroy your life by what they take from you. They destroy it by what they quietly ask you to give up. Your peace, your boundaries, your identity, not in one big moment, but in slow, tiny requests that seem harmless, until one day you look in the mirror and don't even recognize who you've become. Some betrayals don't come with knives. They come with smiles and small requests. Do this for me. Change this about yourself. Stay where it's comfortable. And because you're kind, because you care, because you want to keep the peace, you say yes. Once, twice, 100 times, until one day you realize you have built a life out of other people's needs and buried your own soul under it. Carl Jung once said, "Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent." That unlived life, the fear, the resentment, the shame, doesn't just stay buried. It leaks out into the way people relate to you. It seeps into their expectations. But it's not just parents. It's anyone who projects their fear, their regret, their emptiness onto you, and calls it love, or support, or what's best for you. You think you're being kind. You think you're being good. But what you're really doing is abandoning yourself. In real life, it sounds like this. A partner who loves you but slowly demands you dull your ambition so they feel secure. A friend who needs you but constantly drains you, never giving anything back. A family member who says they only want what's best for you, but shames you when you choose your own path. At first, you comply, because you don't want to lose them. But little by little, every small sacrifice becomes a self-erasure. Until you realize you haven't just lost time, you've lost yourself. And the most dangerous part, it all started with what seemed like innocent requests. That's why you need to be able to spot them early, before your life becomes an unconscious graveyard of other people's expectations. Today, we're exposing 5 psychological asks that seem small on the surface, but are massive red flags underneath. The moment you recognize them, your freedom begins. Stay the same for them. It doesn't always sound like an attack. Sometimes it sounds like love, like concern, like nostalgia. I miss the old you. You used to be so much more easygoing. Remember when you didn't care about all this stuff? At first you might feel guilty. You might wonder, am I becoming selfish? Am I losing who I was? But here's the hidden reality. When someone says they miss the old you, they're often really saying, I miss the version of you who didn't set boundaries, who didn't challenge me, who didn't make me confront my own limitations. Carl Jung said it clearly. Resistance to the organized mass can be affected only by the man who is as well organized in his individuality as the mass itself. Translation: when you start organizing yourself, setting standards, building discipline, following your own voice instead of the herd, people who are disorganized in their own soul will feel threatened, because your strength highlights their weakness. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Your courage reminds them of their avoidance. And instead of facing their own stagnant lives, they'll try to pull you back down to where they feel safe. Not because they hate you, but because your evolution terrifies them. You finally start focusing on your health. You stop drinking every weekend. You spend more time reading, building, thinking, growing. Suddenly your old friends, who once celebrated your every move, start making comments like, "You've changed, man. You think you're better than us now?" No, you don't think you're better. You just finally realized you're worth more than the patterns that kept you small. Or maybe it's family. You choose a new career path, or you decide to move to a new city, and the people you love the most say, "Are you sure you should risk everything?" You're not like those people who take big chances. But you are now, because you're growing into who you were always meant to be, not the version of yourself that stayed quiet to make others comfortable. Here's the deeper truth. When someone genuinely loves you, they celebrate your evolution, even when it scares them. They don't guilt you into shrinking. They don't weaponize the past against your future. Stay away from anyone who asks you, directly or indirectly, to stay small, stuck, or silent, just to soothe their own fear of change. Your growth is not a betrayal, it's a birthright. 2. Give them constant emotional access. It starts small, a late-night phone call, a "can you talk real quick" text that turns into an hour-long emotional dump, a favor you're guilt-tripped into because you're the only one who understands. Before you realize it, you're not just living your life, you're carrying someone else's emotional survival on your back. At first it feels good. You feel needed, valued, like you're doing the right thing. But Carl Jung warned us about these hidden transactions. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The danger? When the reaction is one-sided. When one person pours chaos into you and leaves you with the burden of processing it alone. You're finally having a peaceful day. You're focused, energized, present. Then a text pops up. "Can you believe what just happened to me? I really need to vent." You never respond fast enough anymore. And suddenly your peace is gone. You're sucked into a drama that you had no part in creating, but are somehow expected to fix. Or worse. When you finally set a boundary, say no, delay a response, protect your space, you're met with guilt trips. I guess you're just too busy for real friends now. You've changed. You used to care. But here's what most people won't tell you. Needing support is normal. Demanding unlimited access is not. Some people don't want partnership. They want an emotional servant. And when you try to build your own emotional life, when you prioritize your healing, your goals, your energy, they frame it as betrayal. Why? Because your independence threatens their dependency. Carl Jung knew this deeply. He believed that unresolved emotional pain becomes projected onto others when it's not consciously owned. In Jung's terms, these people are refusing to face their inner world, so they drag you into it over and over to avoid doing their own work. Here's the deeper truth. You are not someone else's therapist. You are not someone else's emotional life raft. And you were not born to be a permanent reservoir for the overflow of their unhealed pain. Healthy people respect emotional rhythms. They honor your need for solitude, reflection, silence. They don't punish you for having your own life. Stay away from anyone who demands endless emotional access and punishes you for setting limits. Because true connection doesn't cost you your peace. It protects it. 3. Apologize for your intuition. There's a subtle way people try to control you. Not by arguing your facts. Not by disproving your logic. But by making you doubt your intuition. You speak up. Something feels off. They respond. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive. You're being paranoid. At first you question them. Then, if you're not careful, you start questioning yourself. Carl Jung once said, "Intuition gives outlook and insight. It revels in the garden of magical possibilities as if they were real." In Jung's view, intuition is not weakness. It's not foolishness. It's a powerful bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind, between what is visible and what is hidden. But here's the danger. When someone feels threatened by your inner clarity, they'll make you feel foolish for having it. Real-life example. You're in a relationship, and something doesn't sit right. Maybe it's subtle, the way they avoid answering simple questions. Maybe it's the coldness in their tone that wasn't there before. Maybe it's just a gut feeling you can't explain. You mention it, hoping for honesty. Instead, they laugh it off. "Wow, you're so dramatic. You always read too much into things." And slowly, that internal compass, the one trying to protect you, starts getting muffled under layers of self-doubt. Or maybe it's in business. You feel uneasy about a deal, a partnership, a person's intentions. Everyone around you says, "It's fine, you're just overthinking." And if you ignore your gut, you end up paying the price. Carl Jung understood this better than almost anyone. He taught that intuition was the language of the deeper self, the part of you that knows before your mind can explain. When you're told over and over that your intuition is wrong, you don't just lose touch with your instincts. You lose touch with yourself. And when that happens, you become easy to manipulate, easy to mislead, easy to use. Because a person disconnected from their own intuition is a person who has to rely on others for truth. Here's the deeper truth. Healthy people don't mock your instincts. They honor them, even if they don't fully understand them. They say, "I hear you. Tell me more. Let's look at this together." Because someone who truly values you values your perception, even when it's uncomfortable. Stay away from anyone who demands that you apologize for your intuition. Your gut is not your enemy. It's your oldest, most loyal guardian, and when you trust it, you stop asking permission to see what you see. 4. Forgive them without change. Some people treat forgiveness like a reset button. They don't seek it because they feel genuine remorse. They seek it because they want to avoid consequences. At first, they seem sincere. "I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again. I promise this time is different." But watch closely. The words are polished. The actions remain the same. Carl Jung once wrote, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Let that sink in. Not what you promise. Not what you confess in a moment of fear. What you consistently choose when no one is watching. A friend betrays your trust. You confront them. They cry. They swear they didn't mean it. They beg you not to walk away. You forgive them because you believe in giving people grace. But weeks later, the same pattern returns. They lie again. They disappear when you need them. They show you that their apology wasn't a doorway to change. It was a strategy to maintain access to you. Or in a relationship, they raise their voice. They cross your boundaries. They swear it was just stress or a bad day. You forgive them again. But slowly your self-respect starts eroding. Not because you're weak, but because you were manipulated into believing their words over your own repeated experience. Here's the deeper psychological trap. When you constantly forgive someone who refuses to change, you're not practicing compassion. You're participating in your own erosion. Carl Jung understood that unconscious behavior, if left unchallenged, does not improve with time. It worsens. The psyche protects itself with denial, minimization, projection. And if you allow someone to keep hurting you without demanding transformation, you're not helping them evolve. You're enabling their unconsciousness. Here's the deeper truth. Forgiveness is beautiful, but forgiveness without accountability is self-betrayal. Healthy people don't just apologize. They adjust. They show you their remorse through tangible, visible effort, not just tears and promises. Stay away from anyone who demands forgiveness while refusing to change. Because every time you forgive without standards, you teach them that hurting you has no real cost. And what you tolerate today becomes the blueprint for how you will be treated tomorrow. 5. Lower your standards to keep them. It doesn't always happen loudly. Most of the time it's subtle. A casual comment, a raised eyebrow, a lingering silence that makes you second-guess yourself. You have standards. Personal, emotional, moral. You've built them through pain, growth, and hard-won experience. But then someone enters your life who doesn't want to rise to meet those standards. They want you to shrink them. Carl Jung once warned, if one does not understand a person, one tends to regard him as a fool. When someone cannot or will not meet your standards, they often try to make you feel like the fool, like you're asking for too much, like you're being unrealistic, too picky, too demanding. Real-world example. You want emotional honesty, clear communication, respect for boundaries. They tell you, you're so uptight. Relationships are messy, just relax. Meaning, lower your expectations so I don't have to grow. Or in a professional setting, you hold yourself to a code of integrity. You show up on time. You deliver on your promises. But they laugh it off. Why do you take everything so seriously? No one else cares that much. Meaning, dull your excellence so I don't have to confront my mediocrity. Here's the psychological reality. People who are uncomfortable with their own laziness, dishonesty, or disorganization will always resent the mirror your standards hold up to them. Rather than rising higher, they pressure you to fall lower, because it's easier for them to dim your light than to confront their own shadows. Carl Jung knew this truth. If you compromise your soul to belong, you don't truly belong. You abandon yourself. Lowering your standards doesn't create connection. It creates quiet resentment inside yourself first, and then, inevitably, between you and them. Here's the truth. Healthy people don't ask you to lower your standards. They respect them, even when your standards challenge them to become better. They may struggle, they may stumble, but they don't shame you for having a vision of life that demands more from yourself and from the people you allow close to you. Stay away from anyone who asks you through words, actions, or silence to abandon your standards just to make them more comfortable. Because every time you lower your bar for someone else's convenience, you send a message to your own soul. You are not worth protecting. And once you start living at someone else's level, it's a long, painful road back to your true one. Here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not just about them. It's about you. It's about what parts of yourself you're willing to sacrifice just to keep someone standing next to you. When you tolerate people who demand constant emotional access, when you doubt your intuition because they told you to, when you keep forgiving someone who never actually changes, when you start lowering your standards so you don't lose them, you're not being kind, you're not being noble, you're betraying the very instincts that were designed to protect you. Carl Jung taught that the greatest tragedies in life don't come from being betrayed by others. They come from the moments when we betray ourselves. Because every time you silence your instincts to avoid a fight, every time you forgive without evidence of change, every time you dim your light so someone else doesn't feel small, you're sending a message to your subconscious. I am not worth fighting for. And the more you send that message, the quieter your inner voice becomes, the harder it is to hear yourself, until one day you look in the mirror and you don't even recognize the person looking back. Understand this. You are not here to be someone else's emotional sponge. You are not here to be endlessly understanding while they endlessly misunderstand you. You are not here to fold yourself into smaller shapes so that broken people can feel whole. You were not created to live a life of constant negotiation with your own worth. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not who others need you to be. Not who others expect you to be. But who you were always meant to be before you started bending under the weight of other people's comfort." So remember, the people who ask you to give up your peace, your instincts, your standards, they're not asking for love. They're asking for your slow, quiet destruction. And you must decide, are you willing to abandon yourself to belong? Or will you finally belong to yourself? If you hear one thing today, hear this. You don't owe your life to people who only show up to drain it. You don't owe your forgiveness to people who refuse to change. You don't owe your instincts an apology. You don't owe your standards an explanation. You owe yourself something. You owe yourself loyalty. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself the kind of love you keep trying to give away to people who don't even know how to receive it. Carl Jung understood that the real battle is never out there. It's inside. Every time you choose yourself, your instincts, your truth, your path, you are healing generations of silent betrayals. You are becoming the person you were destined to be before the world convinced you to negotiate your worth. So stay awake, stay strong. Stay loyal to yourself, even when it feels lonely, especially when it feels lonely. Because the people who truly deserve a place in your life will never ask you to abandon yourself to love them. They will meet you at your standard, or they will step aside for the ones who can. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be loved by the few who can truly see you. If this message spoke to you, if you felt even a small part of yourself wake up while listening, don't let it fade. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to stop abandoning yourself, subscribe and stay with me, because around here we rise without apology.